Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Talk Dirty to Manda. Just me, my microphone, and a OneNote open, and it's still the most nerve-wracking thing I've done. Yeah, today's the only day that I regret not ever having gone skydiving. I think I'd look much cooler online if I said that anything but podcast was the scariest thing I've done up to date. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me. Today, we are going to delve into something that is controversial to me personally, because I can never seem to understand something that is just so common within the modern dating experience, that is dating apps. Now, this is where I'm going to sound like such a big, fat hater. So anybody who does know me in real life has known that I've met my boyfriend in a very meet cute situation. I was working in the store. He just so happened to be browsing as a customer. Next thing you know, bada bing, bada boom, this shit happens. And this is how the discourse usually starts. People go, hey, Amanda, you get to meet someone in real life. You were lucky that way. And some of us don't get to meet people in that manner. So that's where the dating apps come in handy. Now, I'm fully aware that the way that I met my significant other is extremely lucky. I know that. But I used to be young and crazy once too. I used to go on then dating apps as well, and I can tell you exactly why I hate them. Now, let me tell you a little story, okay? And I know that my high school friends can attest to this. When I was 18, I was more excited to go on Tinder than I was to shake my ass at a club. It was a new thing that was trending at the time. And I was a very lawful teenager. Like, I didn't want to get in trouble using it before I was 18. So I waited patiently. All right, this is not even 2 weeks after my 18th birthday. I started swiping left and right. I found some fella, and I can't even say we hit it off. I didn't know what the hell the dating market looked like at the time. All I can say is that he chatted with me the longest and the most consistent of anybody else that I matched on that app. So I think after a couple of weeks, he said that he wanted to take me on the date. I was delighted. I said, all right, put on my best clothes. This is Helsinki, Finland in January. Deep winter. I'm talking the snow is all the way up to your knees. Now, this date was almost 10 years ago, so I may not remember the nitty gritty details. Here's what I remember. I met up with a guy. I said hi. All he said to me was hi, and he started walking. Now, being nervous and shy and young and inexperienced, I didn't ask no questions. I just started following him. 10 minutes of me literally just jogging behind him. I finally asked him where we were going, in which he replies, I don't know. So, to keep the long story short, he barely said a word on the date. I walked about 5 meters behind him for about 2 hours, minus 20 degrees, midwinter, until I texted a friend to call me with an emergency. Basically, it was such a shitty experience. That was my first and my last Tinder date. It was a very effective method for me to stop talking to strangers online. If there's any parents out there that's listening and you want your kids to really understand internet safety, this is possibly a solution for you. For legal reasons, that's a joke, thank you. So moving along, what are dating apps? Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, and anything that's new that I'm too old to know about. But when you think dating apps, you think of the one key feature that they have, right? You swipe. It's a yes or no based mainly on the pictures that they post on their profile. This is where I can hear some of you moaning and groaning away. It's like, oh, of course I read the bios. This is gonna be a lecture on pretty privilege and superficiality. Yes and no. Because here's the thing, when you date online, do you really stop putting yourself out there in real life? No. Can the way you date online shape the way that you date in real life? Yes. And that's what I'm getting into. Before I sound like a real hater, I'm going to be very clear that I don't condone it myself, but I don't think that dating apps are all bad. Mathematically, if you're someone who goes to college or you're someone who's particularly active in a lot of communities, you you get to meet a lot of new people, and a good percentage of that people can fit into your dating pool. But then what about the fellows who work 9 to 5, career minded, with just enough time to meet their close friends and then leaves enough time for their personal wind down? They deserve to find love as well. But if they don't know somebody who could play matchmaker for them, what are they gonna do? So then, yes, I get it, I understand. Get on your Tinder, get on your apps, match, start a conversation. Maybe it turns into a date. Maybe it's just a fling. Either ways, you'll have that connection. Happy fucking days. But here's an observation that I made of couples who have met on dating apps. They don't seem to want people to know that they've met on Tinder. And I think we're being very mature about this, not calling it a sex app or a hookup app, because we know that's not what it was made for. It was made for dating. And it's not impossible to meet someone that you fall in love with, but happy couples who met on this app and deny or hide this fact adds on to the stigma of being able to find love in a hopeless place. Even though I personally feel that being able to find love in a hopeless place is an accomplishment. And the general reason I get is that by saying that they met on Tinder, they look desperate. You're telling everybody that you are looking for love or hookup. And then there's the fear of people thinking, why can't you meet someone naturally? Why can't you meet someone that's not online? Nobody wants to announce that they swiped right and matched with the love of their life while they were doing a poo. And let's be real, the public loves the idea of fate and romance, and there's nothing romantic about that. And this is where my marketing degree comes in handy, because I did a little bit of my own ethnography around this. So there's a comment that says there's fear of seeming desperate, like they weren't good enough to find someone the normal way and had to seek someone out online because they were too lonely. And another said that telling people that they met their boyfriend on Twitter is like saying that I sent my shit to his house and he accepted. So perhaps it just comes down to the perception of dating apps as a whole. I think it's ironic that everyone who's single has it on their phone, and it's still something that seems to be so stigmatized in this day and age. So let's see who goes and uses these dating apps. One, you have people who go there to find sex. Secondly, there's people who actually want to find love. And the third one, the people's choice of it all, it's those who say they want to find love but are clearly just there for sex. There's a little story I know, and that story has been told and retold so many times. You might have the same fucking story. It's the most unoriginal thing. I know someone who met this bloke off Tinder. It was going well, but then he ended things because he wanted it to be short term. That was his reason to break up. He says that he wasn't ready for commitment, but then she goes back digging to his Tinder bio and he says that he wants long term. Now, I think this is something that should have been discussed on the first date. I'm very much into the whole interview style first date. I know that intimidates a lot of people. It's not a very popular choice, and I completely understand why. Date the way you want to date at the end of the day. But it can really be broken down to just a few options. It's what? Casual. You have serious long-term commitments. You're also okay if you don't know, as long as you're upfront that you don't know what you're looking for. And then there's the interview style dates that I like. I get why it's unpopular. How can you go meet someone for the first time and ask, do you want marriage? Do you want a kids and a house and a picket fence? But you know what? If they do say yes, and then on the second date tell you that they want things to be short term, you know he was a liar. Or maybe he wants them, just not with you. Either ways, you get rid of it fairly early on, the fastest way you can. And this brings me to the point about the people on the app, including yourself. It's not about who's lying to you, who's a liar versus who's not. There's a good variety of the types of people on the platform. You're going to fall into one of these categories. I'm going to take a small break and tell you very quickly that I do have a little form on my website where you can submit completely anonymous. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. If you do have a question relating to any woes that you may have of your dating life, feel free to type it in. I absolutely adore Q&As, but I'm just beginning, so I'm going to be yapping and yapping and yapping until I collect enough of you. So anyways, getting back to the topic, what kind of person are you on these dating platforms? The first one's rather easy. It's the demographic that it's intended for. It's the people who actually want to find a relationship off a dating app, pure optimistic. They put effort into their pictures, they put effort into their bios, they read your bios, they practice effective communication during the texting phase, and they actually care about going on dates when you hit it off. And the best part is that if you match with someone like this, isn't it such a winner to find someone like that on the platform? It is an A+ standard blueprint of a person you'd actually want to go on a date with. But if you are that person, aren't you just in for a ride? You're gonna get disappointed so quickly unless you meet someone on the app who's just like you. And before I sound like the most pessimistic person in the world, it's not impossible. We've just talked about couples who met on these apps. I just know people who you can generally call a good person that is just not that person. And then next you have someone who is there to collect validation. Now, this particular type of person is getting more and more popular within these platforms. Essentially, they just wank off to the number of people who like their profile. The number of matches matter. That's it. They don't talk to you. And if you do happen to have conversations with them, it dies down because they just do not care. They just want to see that people are continuously liking their profile. People are super liking it. People are trying to say hi and talk to them. And that is what the apps are for them. The worst case scenario that I've seen of someone who collects validation off dating apps is they set their profile to bisexual, even if they're not, just to see other users of the same sex with shittier profiles, just so they can scroll through them as well to tell themselves that they are better than most on the market. And I'm not saying that people who do this are shitty people, or they're mean, or they're not a girl's girl, or anything like that. But the app is basically set up for instant gratification. If you feel like you want to go on a date, aren't you gonna go on a date with the person who asks you out the fastest? And with that logic, the fastest way to know that you're fuckable is an app where you can see immediately the number of people who are swiping right on you. It's even faster than Instagram and TikTok and all that. You need to care about the algorithm. You take a while to find a following. There's less comments straight away. Even liking your photo these days doesn't mean that they find it attractive. But if someone swipes right on your profile, it's unmistaken. They either want to date or to fuck you. That's it. And in the mildest way possible, monsters aren't born, they're created. And the next person is basically who I was when I was still using those apps. You have the person I call the window shopper. I'd like to think I'm not a person you can traumatize easily. But then after that shitty date, I never went on the second one. But every time I'm single, I still somehow manage to download Tinder. And I wouldn't even really swipe on it. When I do, I just have like the slowest conversation possible with people who are still fun to talk to. But I just never get around to going on dates. And you know how you can preview when people text you? Anytime I see the word, "Are you free on?" I just wouldn't open it. This platform was basically entertainment to me because I was bored. I was more invested in the people that I was able to meet in real life and interact with in real life, but I still chose to go on Tinder to see what was up. And I never thought I was a bad person for doing that when I was doing that, because I never lied to anybody technically. I was having clean enough conversations where I wasn't leading anyone on. I was just swiping around left and right because I thought it was fun. In hindsight, here's what I did wrong. The people who were still talking to me are putting in their energy talking to me. I wanted a relationship that was long term, just not with any of the weirdos online. And you know what? I had actually come across my boyfriend's Bumble profile before I even met him, but I couldn't tell you until this day if we actually had a chat or not. Either ways, the truth is, if we continue that conversation and I had gotten to know him through a dating app, I would not have thought of him the same way, even though he was the exact same person. He to me would have just become some online weirdo. And if that's how I felt about people on that app, then you can see exactly why it was unethical of me to be even using it in the first place. And even though this is going to make me sound like such a crappy person, it is the truth. The people I was swiping through didn't even feel like people after a while. They just felt like NPCs. And of course, upon reflection, I can be like, oh, these were people with their own stories who have great personalities. But while swiping, it was hard not to objectify them. I hope I'm never single again, but if I ever am, just karmically, I should probably never be on dating apps for that reason. And then you have the people who I think is slightly worse, or who I like to think that I'm better than, which are the walking, talking red flags. We've talked about this. It's the ones who say they want long term but really doesn't. They love saying that they want to see where things go with you, to leave space for situationships, really. They're the ones who've been trained to not get too attached. And then they become your lesson to not be attached on these apps. And I won't even delve into why this is bad. This is something that's just almost uniformly socially unacceptable. And then you have the last people, who I call the interviewer. They're the ones who are a little bit too forthcoming into the chat. They want to skip the whole dating thing. They're just looking for what they want. Now, the good thing is that they know what they want. But can you tolerate the kinds of personal questions that they ask you before you get to the date? They want to know where you work, how much money you make, do you have a car, do you have a house, do you want kids, do you want the picket fence, what kind of dogs do you like, what school system do you want to put our kids into? They're basically very educated on stranger danger. I'd honestly like to be this person. I think there's a lot of logic there, but sometimes this is word that we have in Singapore, or a term that we have. It's called kiasu kiasi. Then tu kiasu also cannot lah, huh? And that's why I call them the interviewer. It's basically whatever that you say in the chat works as a resume, and they're looking to cut people out so that only the good pile ends up on a date with them. I think we can all see why this isn't always met with a positive response. I can respect what they're doing, but I can see why the execution isn't necessarily well liked. And anyways, these are all the people that I can think of. If you'd like to add on any, you know where my form is. You can always add to the conversation. It doesn't need to always be a question. I always like hearing other people's opinions. You can say, Manda, you know what, this fucking sucked. I'll take it. I'll take it. Everything's a learning curve. But then amongst all these people, who's the one that succeeds? Of course, then we have to also define what success means. Some people will take getting laid as a win. Some people are actually trying to meet the love of their lives. And you can see that's two very different types of goals. And I'm almost so sad to say this. I really am. It doesn't seem like it's the people who are looking for love, is it? It's the guy who does things casually. It's the girls who are comfortable to talk in to 5 people at a time, and not put all their effort into one person. They don't put all their eggs in one basket, and that's smart. You can't even hate them for it. If there's potentially 100 dates to go on, you don't have the time to invest in people one by one and get to know them as a person before you decide Again, spending time to decide if you like them and to continue it. And then there's the possibility that the person who you end up with is in the next batch of swipes. And that's how you get into the mentality of being the chooser. So you think you have the upper hand, and that it develops into this weird God complex. And that's not something that you may even have in your personality, in your day to day life. It almost comes out in your online persona and exclusively your online persona. So why? Why do people have a God complex with no God inside of them? I mean, the first one is fairly obvious. You have a very inflated self perception. We've talked about getting the likes, the super likes, the attention. But here's the thing, the brain has a hard time differentiating between they want to sleep with me versus they want to date me or they want to build a life with me. And I hate using the term value. I do, but there's a displacement. It's sexual interest versus your overall value as a person. And specifically to dating apps, it does not go hand in hand. People also forget that scientifically, they end up with someone who is fairly close to themselves. This is in terms of attractiveness, social class, values, education. Basically, if you look in the mirror, your partner, the partner that you're going to end up with, is pretty fucking predictable. What swiping does to you is that you forget that. You feel like you have access to everyone possible. You slowly forget that access and acquisition are two different things. For the next part, bear with me because I am going to sound like a dick. Let's say you have a doctor who matched you, a model who went on a date with you, and a lawyer who super liked you. Congratulations. You have expanded your dating pool into people who you wouldn't have met without the app. This does not mean that you belong in their dating pool or they belong in yours. If you're someone who's looking for casual, this probably would not matter. But if you're looking for long term, matching with them doesn't mean that you're compatible in terms of lifestyle or values. And sometimes I think it's okay to forget that. But let's say you don't. You keep swiping and you keep thinking you have access to everyone possible. It turns into entitlement. And let's be clear, entitlement doesn't have anything to do with how you perceive yourself in terms of attractiveness. The problem is telling yourself that because you have had access to so many people, you deserve better than the person who's in front of you. Now, some of us wish we had that mentality while going out in the early stages with certain exes. But on a more serious note, it's best seen in these sort of situationships where one party wants to have the benefits of a relationship without the actual relationship. How many of us have heard about that? It's an old tale. Or you get people who expect perfection and they bring basically nothing to the table. Now, I think that you should have high standards for the people you date. That's a different thing. Having high standards does not equal perfection. Let's say I expected a guy who is a complete 10 out of 10, over 6 foot tall, earns a lot of money, enough to pay for my rent and all my pretty things. On top of that, he can never get angry at me. He only speaks to be nice, he's nice to my friends, he's nice to my family. He also doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, responds to me only kindly even if I speak to him like a dog. Also gets all the housework done. Never have to lift a finger in my life. Completely mentally stable. Always 100% perfectly groomed. Zero body odor even after a very intensive gym session. You kind of get the gist there. I could go on and on and on. Yeah, that man doesn't exist. And if he does, he wouldn't choose me, girl. And this is not to be confused by accepting disrespectful or irresponsible or just men who borderline cheat. This is not to confuse, to tolerate those behaviors. What I'm saying is that there's pros and cons to every person, but if you're not going to accept the most mild of cons, then maybe dating is just not for you. And you know what? This podcast actually went so much longer than I thought it was. I don't even know how to end it. Um, really, if everyone thinks that they're settling, then who are they supposed to date? That's the only closing statement that I have on this topic. Really, at the end of the day, I don't think dating apps are bad. I just think that they do amplify what's already wrong with modern dating. I think the only hope, which is, it's a useless word to have hope. I don't think I need to have that hope anymore, but I think if you're still looking for someone out there, that's my hope to you. We're people, after all, we develop habits, and after using these online platform for a while, we're going to develop habits that come with it. And it becomes hard to navigate when those habits leak into how you interact or perceive people in real life. And that's my whole point. But here we go. I have one little Q&A from someone who submitted to the form. Thank you very much. It says, "Where have you been?" In the last year, I had done my master's, and then I proceeded to work full time while doing my master's full time. And I just kind of blacked out after that. It took a while for me to become normal if you're on 2 hours of sleep for almost a year. And I do love my creative online endeavors, therefore this, but it took me a while before I actually felt like creating stuff again. But thank you so much for asking. And that's me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming to my first episode. It is literally like going to be half an hour long. I did not expect that. But if you listen to this, thank you so much. I hope you follow me and add whatever comments. Go to my little website, type whatever nonsense you want me to answer next time. And you have yourself a nice day. That's been Talk Dirty to Manda.